Despite what you might think, the origin of lamb confit seems to be Scandinavia and not France. Lamb confit tastes quite different from roasted lamb. It's much milder, and people who think they don't like lamb usually do like the confit version. Sauce bordelaise is a classic French sauce, although the manner in which I'm preparing it here is unique, and I dare say that this bordelaise is better than Escoffier's. This has a richer flavor, and even though it does take a few hours to make, Escoffier's version takes days to make. This is almost a reverse version of Escoffier's recipe in the sequence of steps taken, in fact, as you'll notice if you're familiar with the classic. I have 30 grams of garlic cloves to that, and now I'm going to mix this with 2 tablespoons of salt, coarse salt, and 1 tablespoon of dried rosemary. Now, if you don't have a mortar and pestle that's big enough, just use a regular bowl. Take the pestle from whatever size you've got, and just kind of bash it up a little bit. In this case, it doesn't have to be exact, because we're not looking for a fine paste here. We just want to combine it. Okay, and after a couple of minutes, I've got this combined well enough to make use of it. Now, I've got the lamb here. I've got about 2 pounds of lamb. I got to coat this fairly evenly, and then I'm going to put it in a container for the refrigerator, and leave it there overnight. And here's what it looks like when it's going into the refrigerator. Now, I said overnight, but in reality, if you leave this for about 4 hours, it's fine. Okay, it's been in the refrigerator for several hours now. I'm going to knock off the 2 pieces of garlic there and salt. I'm not going to go completely get rid of all of it, because some of it will actually be good. But we got too much right now. This is too much garlic and salt and all. Now also, I don't have a Dutch oven that's quite really ideal size for this. So I'm using regular pot. I'm going to cover it up tightly with foil. The next step, though, is to put some duck fat on it. I did an experiment on this where I used only plain oil. It wasn't so good. If you use only plain oil, it will not become as tender. There's something about the duck fat that has some magical properties, it seems. Very fine oil. So we definitely want to rub some duck fat into it first for maximum tenderness, and then we'll fill it up the rest of the way with regular. Okay, I got enough oil in here that it is definitely submerged. Now I'm going to cover this up tightly with foil. Because of the long braising time and the fact that this isn't a Dutch oven. If it was a Dutch oven, I know that the lid would seal well enough anyway, but it's not. So I'm going to put this on and let it go over. Okay, this is after 9 hours of being in the oven, and then I actually let it cool down for about an hour. Just on top of the stove with no extra heat. And I have to be careful in handling the lamb at this point, because it's pretty tender, let me tell you. And if you just handle it roughly, the whole thing will fall apart on you, and then you'll have some ugly shredded lamb. In fact, what we're going to do, I'm going to take this out, put it on a platter, so you drain the oil off, put it on a platter, and we're going to refrigerate this so that it'll help firm it up again, because it's so tender now that if I were to try to cook it in a sauce or something, it's just gonna go into like shredded meat. Pour the fat that the lamb was cooked in. Strainer. This is after it's cooled, by the way. I'm going to have to leave it to settle here for a few minutes. We're going to use both of these parts, but for different purposes. Begin cooking the flour and that oil. Okay, because there's water in this fat, it's going to bubble up on you. So after it started bubbling up on a heat of 5, I reduced the heat to 2, and I'm going to keep stirring this for a little bit until we get rid of some of that bubbling, maybe 2.5. Now that the foaming subsided, I turned the heat up to 3 on a 1 to 10. I'm still cooking this slowly because I want to make sure that we have very evenly cooked roux. As the roux is cooking away, we prepare everything else. We have this concentrated, what's essentially lamb stock that came out of the bottom of the fat separator. We have the tomato sauce we're going to use. We have mushrooms, carrots, celery, and onions in the right proportions that have been cut up. I'm going to add about 4 cloves of garlic to this. Remember, very large pieces. This is part of the strategy. Everything's ready. Now we're just waiting for the roux to come to the brown stage. Okay, it's been quite a few minutes. This roux is very, very close to officially the brown stage. But one of the tricks in trying to figure out, is it brown, what is it, is you have to have experience, of course, and look at this. This is, of course, with this video camera you can't tell. When you look at it, is this toast? No, it's darker than toast. Is it peanut? No, it's lighter than peanut. How do you know exactly what toast and peanut is? Well, of course, you do it enough times, you get familiar with it. This is the brown stage, even though you probably look yellow in this terrible video camera. Okay, now I'm going to add the tomato sauce, and you have to do this a little bit at a time. Don't just dump it in, because this roux right now is like napalm. It's extremely, extremely hot. And if you just dump this in, the whole thing will explode in your face. So you have to add the tomato sauce gradually. And again, when I say tomato sauce, I don't mean Ragu brand bottled tomato sauce. I mean pureed Italian tomatoes, what Italians call passata. In restaurants, we call this tomato sauce. Okay. This is going to thicken up real fast. As soon as we get enough of that moisture out of there. Now I'm going to add all these vegetables that were cut so coarsely. And here's where the fun begins. This is going to take a while for all of this to reduce down because, well, it's not really reducing. What we're doing is we're getting the vegetables to exude their moisture. Okay, this is what it looks like after about 5.5 minutes. As you can see, still quite gloopy. Every time I do this, I can't help but think back one of my earliest restaurant jobs. I think it was like second or third real job that I had, not counting childhood jobs, at this French restaurant in San Francisco. And the saucier didn't have very much respect for me, but he'd been assigned to teach me some things. I was basically doing line cooking, and he was making this kind of sauce, and he said, wouldn't the size of the vegetables that you cut up for the sauce should be in relation to how long it's going to cook. And so he's making this kind of sauce, and he's got the vegetables cut up small, and I said, you said the size of the vegetables should be in relation to the cooking time. And it's going to cook for 1.5 hours, so why the vegetables? Why you cut them up so small? And I still remember this. It's kind of like a light bulb went on in his head, and he patted me on the head and he said, "You're a genius." I didn't even understand what it was that I'd said at the time, and he went ahead and started changing it, making it this way. The flavor is so much better than the traditional classic way. It's just amazing that nobody thought of this before, because it follows all the rules of classic French cuisine. But yet, this is not how it's usually done. You don't have these giant wads of vegetables in there, but you should. This is exactly the rule. You got big vegetables that cook a long time. They'll release their flavor slowly. If you have little tiny pieces of vegetables, they're going to release all their flavor all at once. By the time the thing's done cooking, there's not going to be anything left in it. So This is going to be much better result. You'll see. It's loose enough now. Now I'm going to add about half the wine. Continue cooking it after the wine went in for a few minutes until you can no longer smell the alcohol. It's going to be, because this paste will really absorb flavors, including alcohol. You're going to have to stir it for 3 or 4 more minutes. And you can see though, it's loosening up. It's becoming closer to being a sauce and less like being solid. Okay. Now I'm going to add water, a liter. Now that everything is in, I've increased the heat to a 5, and I'm going to bring this up to a good simmer, and then lower the heat to a slow simmer, and let it cook for a while. Okay, now this is what I'm talking about. Now it's come at a good simmer. We're going to skim this. If we get some mushrooms along with it, that's okay. They've given up their flavor. They don't really need to be in there. What we want to do is we want to get rid of this scum off the surface, because this will make it a little bit bitter and a little bit floury. I'm not going to worry about trying to get mushrooms out of it. Like I said, if we pick some up, that's okay. They're done anyway. We're going to be straining them out pretty soon. The most important thing is to get rid of the scum. Okay, and you don't have to be anal about that either. Just get the bulk of it. Now we're going to turn the heat down. It was on a 5, and by the way, it took about 20 minutes to get up to this point. Now I'm going to turn it down to a 3, keep it going on a slow simmer. One of the reasons why home cooks often and restaurant cooks don't get good, intense flavored sauces is because they want to boil them up really fast. What happens when you introduce enough heat at the bottom of the pot, what you're doing is you're causing so much steam to escape that it actually pulls the volatile oils, which is where all the flavor is, out along with it. In organic chemistry, it's called a steam distillation. It's actually a process used on purpose to get certain inextractable materials out with steam. So you don't want to do that. We have a gentle amount of steam coming off, and once we've got the scum off, which was the purpose of the rapid simmer, now we can just reduce the simmer down, keep it going very slowly, let all those flavors meld. Okay, it's been simmering away for about an hour. Now we can start removing these solids. You could pass it through a sieve, but it'll be a difficult process because this is pretty thick and you'll lose a lot of material. It's actually easier just to do this and then put this in a sieve to get some of the liquid back into it rather than the other way around. But, you know, whatever you want to do. If you want to do it the other way, do it the other way. Also, you need to get the bouquet garni off of this thing, too. So, that's the first step, is getting the solids out with it. And after a minute, you go through it. You can't find anything else. You got everything, you're sure. Then put a sieve on it. Take the solids that you got off back into the sieve and go the other way. And whatever you get out, that's great. But you don't have to worry about it too much because there's only a little bit of the actual liquid that's going to be left on here. And push it down now and try to get as much as you can through it, obviously. Okay, wipe the bottom of the sieve off. Okay, now we're ready for the next step. As it's reducing, it's going to build up some more scum, and you can take off some of this. Don't be too careful. This will make it taste smoother, but it will also reduce the thickening power. So you have to decide how much scum you're going to remove. Okay, this has been on a slow simmer now for another 45 minutes. I've pulled scum off of it rather 2 times. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to skim it any more than that, because otherwise I'm going to reduce the thickening power too much. Now I'm going to add what I called the other half of the wine, this being sherry, a medium sherry. Not too dry, but also not like Oloroso. You want something medium. And it's going to continue to cook even longer. Now, the meat's been in the refrigerator for several hours. It's about time we turn our attention to this lamb. It's got the fat cap on it still that's going to have to come off. You're going to have to watch all over it for where there's sinew. All these heavy parts of fat, these need to go, because this is not going to taste good in the final product. And it's going to take some work. I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole thing. You get the idea. Obviously, you want to remove the bones. Don't screw up the meat by start shredding it. Respect the integrity of the meat, because it's very soft right now, and it would be very easy to turn this into like a shredded pork kind of product. That's not what we want. After you've got the pieces trimmed down, they start to fall apart in the natural ways that the muscles are organized. This piece is all fat. Finally, out of 1 kilogram of lamb, I ended up with 420 grams of nice sized pieces that are perfectly cooked and trimmed. Meanwhile, this sauce is getting thick, and it's now been cooking nearly an hour since those vegetables were pulled out of it. I'm going to actually take it up to just slightly more than this, and then I'm going to leave it, and we're going to combine the dish at the end when we're actually ready to serve. What I'm doing here is it's a version of fondant potatoes. It's going to be a little bit more rustic looking. So I cut the potatoes kind of irregular, but when you do this, you want to make sure you absolutely have a good flat side on one of them. Separate them so they don't steam as much as they do brown. And we'll let them cook for a couple minutes, a few minutes. Then after a few minutes, this is about 4 minutes in. Flip them. Another 4 minutes. Okay, it's been a few more minutes. I trimmed the potatoes around a couple times. As you can see, they've got pretty good browning on them. It's only been about 8 minutes now since I first put them in the pan. Now we've got a dish here that's got some butter in it already. Toss the potatoes in the baking dish here with the butter. The heat's going to melt that butter in just a minute. I'm also going to add some coarse salt. Quite a bit. And get some chicken stock here. If the butter didn't melt before, it will now. I heated the chicken stock up in the microwave. And make sure I get a single layer, and then this is going to go in the oven. Okay, just one more thing though. I put in about 3 cloves of garlic in here, and notice that the chicken stock only comes up about 3/4 of the way on the potatoes. We want the top surface of the potatoes exposed. This is on purpose. Okay, and after 40 minutes, these come out fork tender, and we're just going to reserve these to the side until we're ready to serve up the lamb. And when it comes time to serve it, you're going to simmer the meat, the portion of meat that you want, in the portion of sauce that goes with it, till the sauce is thick and the meat is completely warmed up and finished. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.